Despite the Rebels' success the last 2 years, what may have been a key factor in keeping Ole Miss from Atlanta the last 2 years is the lack of a solid, consistent running game week to week. We bring in Courtney Smith from the Rebel Walk to help us break down the 2016 backfield for the Rebels. Courtney, it's always a pleasure, man.
Thanks for having me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. Both of us are up early.
Yeah, it's a little hot and sticky there in Mississippi.
Of course, it's every southern state gets hot and sticky around this time of year.
That's it. I was down there for 6 years, so I know the deal. We know the deal with Jaylen Walton, productive back, 22 career touchdowns, caught 23 passes last year, led the team with 730 yards rushing. But it's kind of my take, as you could hear there off the top, Courtney, that most successful teams in the SEC run the ball very well. I think this team was carried by a strong passing game and defense the last couple of years. If you could run it better, you could be a lot more successful and maybe make that trip to the SEC championship game.
Think that, when you say that, think about this. What was the primary reason Alabama has been so successful? Because of the running game. You think about the 09, I think the 09 year, you had Mark Ingram. Just last year, you had Derrick Henry. And there are so many backs that have come through Alabama that has been the primary reason, the centerpiece of the offense. I mean, you have had Greg McElroy as the quarterback in that 09 year. You had A.J. McCarron for those back-to-back national championships. But those running backs were the primary reason the offense was so successful. And Ole Miss hasn't had any of that, really. The years Bo Wallace was there, Wallace has been dependent on to lead the offense down the field. Chad Kelly first year, he had a lot of duties to lead the offense. He had to run. At times when the running game couldn't get going, Chad Kelly had to break out and run. And he finished well with 500 yards rushing, which is unbelievable, but it's crazy. He only finished 200 some yards short of the starting running back. So that lets you know that Ole Miss running game really wasn't as effective as Alabama and other schools in the SEC like LSU, running backs that have been solid on every down, every game, whenever they're called upon, those backs are delivering. So this year during the spring, Freeze said he's putting a lot of emphasis on the running game because the running game hasn't been successful in years past. Yeah, I can't remember the last time the running game has been successful at Ole Miss. I only remember quarterbacks, primarily leading the offense down the field. And so that's why in this 2016 class, you mentioned before the show started that three of the backs in the 2016 class are rated highly by ESPN. It was a reason. There's a reason why Freeze went and got those guys because that's the weakness of the offense. You don't have a running game. Chances are you're not going to make it to Atlanta for the SEC championship game. But hopefully this year, losing Jaylen Walton doesn't hurt at all because you bring guys like Jordan Wilkins back, Akeem Judd. You bring Eric Swinney, who didn't play last year due to a leg injury, had to sit out, had the red shirt. Those are three backs. Then you got Penniman, who's rated high by ESPN. That's four backs right there. So this team is deep this year in running backs. So I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say it's not going to be a successful year, but it's going to be an interesting year in the running game to see if Ole Miss can finally get over that hump, become like an Alabama, grind the ball out, wear defenses down with the running game. If so, you can see another top 3 finish in the SEC West and possibly a trip to Atlanta.
Well, you make some good points there, Courtney. I'm guessing that the last dominant back in Oxford was a guy that I covered when I was down there, Deuce McAllister, who went on to the New Orleans Saints and was a Pro Bowler. He was a dominant back, great back. You mentioned Connor Penniman and Street. We'll talk about them right at the end as we sign off, just kind of mentioning some guys that we'll probably not see this fall, but in future years for Ole Miss, maybe you got a horse right there. But if you can size up between Akeem Judd, Jordan Wilkins, and Eugene Brazley, those guys that got extended playing time last year and contributed, what do they do well, and how will probably Hugh Freeze mix and match so he gets the best talent on the field?
Judd and Brazley are the same. They're both power backs. They like to run through the middle. They like to run you clean over. Jordan Wilkins, he has a mixture of being a power back. Then he has great legs on him. He's quick. He can break to the outside and go 30, 40 yards deep at any given time. So there's a mixture of backs there. You just don't have one type of back, whether it's power or speed. All three backs consist of speed, power, agility, which is something you need in the SEC because you just can't have speed like you were seeing in the Big 12, Big 10. You're seeing speeded backs, but they can't run over anyone. They can't get over anyone. They would need their legs like Reggie Bush needed at USC to get past defenses and get to the end zone. Whereas these bad, they can carry two guys if needed, especially Judd and Brazley. Those guys definitely did some of that last year, whereas some linebackers and defensive tackles were scared to tackle them because they were coming right at them and they were just hurtling right over them. Sort of like what Derrick Henry did for Alabama. But you didn't see much of that with Brazley and Judd because Walton was the starting running back. And I think this year you will see more of that. Jordan Wilkins, of course, if I had to say, Wilkins will probably get the nod at the starting running back, but look for Judd, Bracele, and Swinney to get some touches throughout the year when needed.
Courtney Smith joining us from the Rebel Walk to help us size up the backfield for Ole Miss. So you're thinking that Hugh Freeze doesn't care if one guy emerges. He's good if he's got to play three guys. He's not looking to separate one guy to be the man.
No, I mean, because last year when Walton struggled, Walton wasn't big at all. Walton was like 5'8", 5'9". He couldn't run over, opposing defenses. He was just a speedy back. So that's why Wilkins was used primarily as the second back last year for that power because Walton was small. He couldn't run through the middle. Wilkins could run through the middle. Judd can run through the middle. So I think what you saw last year using 3 to possibly 4 backs, Freeze is going to do that this year because he doesn't have that star-studded back as of yet. Now, that can change once the season gets here. One of these guys can emerge as the front leader, the front runner at the running back's position and lead the Ole Miss offense and help Chad Kelly out where he won't have to throw as much as he did last year. But right now, there are question marks, but he does have potential in all of these guys.
Now, Courtney, we talked about it before we came on. Eric Swinney out of Georgia, the 17th rated running back coming out of 2015, according to ESPN. He could be a wild card. Maybe he gets into the mix, too.
I can see that. When he first got to Oxford, people were saying, oh, my God, our running game is going to really change. He has speed. He has power. He's not afraid to run at you. And that's the type of running back he is. But people didn't get a chance to see that once he suffered a leg injury last summer, leading up to the fall, leading up to the season. So he had to sit out. He had the red shirt, and so fans had a chance to see him doing scrimmages during the spring, and he was impressive. That leg that he injured last summer looks to be 100% healed. He doesn't look rusty at all. And that was surprising by Freeze and the staff. They were shocked that he's progressed so quickly, having to sit out a year, not having any opportunity to play a down for Ole Miss. And I can tell you, there were like 2 or 3 times during the scrimmage. Every time he had the ball, he was running 1 or 2 guys over. He was going right at them. He wasn't trying to dodge them with a spin move or anything like that. He just ran straight at them. And Freeze mentioned that that's what he wants. That's what he likes. He wants a back that's not afraid of contact, that wants to go after that big defensive lineman, that defensive tackle, that big middle linebacker, run them clean over, wear the defense down. So then once you get that type of back in a game with Chad Kelly can do the rest. You wear the defense down, then here comes the deep balls, here comes the short passes through the middle. Or Chad Kelly can take off running. He has the ability to do so. He did a lot last year. So with Swinney, there's a possibility he can be a sleeper. And what I mean by that, he can be the guy that out of nowhere shock a lot of teams, shock a lot of people, catch a lot of eyes. And Freeze is hoping with the backs he has on this roster, there's one out of someone can do that. And Swinney, in my opinion, hey, he can be the wild card, but as of right now, I would say, like I mentioned before, Wilkins would be number one on the running back depth chart, only because of his experience. But don't sleep on the other guys, especially Swinney. He can be a wild card that can sneak in there and get just as many carries as Wilkins.
Yeah, you've got weapons all over the place. If you could beat down a defense with a power running game, look out. All right, and then some of the guys that we wanted to mention, not necessarily for 2016, but for beyond, looking down the road, Justin Connor out of Sardis, Mississippi. You got Devon Penniman out of Texas, and Jarian Street, Trussville, Alabama. 3 of the top 40 rated running backs coming out of high school this past recruiting class. All right, Courtney Smith from the Rebel Walk breaking down the Rebels backfield for us. We appreciate it, Courtney.
Oh, man, I appreciate you, man.